Hey everyone, in this video I'm just going to spend some time going over the 1.3 collaboration and point out just a couple of things. So the first thing I wanted to talk about with you is how to estimate percentages without a calculator or writing anything down. This is just a great skill to have, so you could always determine whether or not an answer is reasonable by kind of using these mental skills. So I have a little table here for you with the percentage that you would estimate, how to do it, and then an example off to the side. Again, this is just if you're estimating without writing anything down, without going to the calculator. So for 1%, one thing that you could do is move your decimal point 2 places to the left. So for example, if you wanted to find 1% of 456.7, you could just move your decimal point 2 places to the left. So that means that 1% would be 4.567. Very similarly, if you had to find 10%, you could move the decimal point 1 place to the left. So 10% of 9,703 would be 970.3. So you could use those if you wanted to find other percentages. So for example, if you wanted to find half of a percent, you could find 1% first and then divide that answer by 2. So 1% of 820 would be 8.2, and again, that's moving the decimal point 2 places to the left. So then to get half of a percent of 820, you would take the 8.2 and cut it in half, divide by 2, and that would give you 4.1. If we wanted to find 5%, we could find 10% first and then divide that answer by 2. So if 10% of 500 is 50, then that means that 5% of 500 is 25. So once you find 10%, you can divide that answer by 2 to get 5%. And you could do something similar for any multiple of 10%, like 20%, 30%, 40%, etc. So if I wanted to find, I shouldn't have multiplied by 2 here, but this is just for 20%, for example. So if I wanted to do 20%, I could find 10% and then multiply it by 2. If I wanted to find 30%, I would multiply by 3. 40%, I would multiply by 4. Right, so this number changes depending on what percentage you're looking for. Just notice I have a little typo there as well. So here's some examples. So if 10% of 60 is 6, then 20% would be 12, because that would be times 2. 30% would be 18, because 6 times 3 is 18. 40% of 60 would be 24, because 6 times 4 is 24. You could do that for other percentages as well. You might not want to do it for 50% because there's a shorter way to do it for 50, but for 60, 70, 80, 90, and so forth. All right, for 25%, we saw this in the collaboration. One thing you could do is think about that as the fraction 1/4, which means you can divide the value by 4. If dividing by 4 mentally is challenging, you could always divide by 2 and then divide by 2 again. So for example, if I take 160 divided by 4, that gives me 40. So that means that 25% of 160 is 40. Another way to do that division, I could do 160 divided by 2 to get 80, and then divide 80 by 2 to get 40. So another way to divide by 4 would be to divide by 2 twice. If we wanted to estimate 33%, we could divide by 3. So for example, 33% of 639 is 213, and that's just by dividing 639 by 3. And again, we saw that in the collaboration that sometimes you have to change or round your numbers to maybe the nearest 10 or just to any close number that's easy for you to divide by whatever you need to divide by. So if we wanted to round our number, just change it so it's a number close and make all the digits something divisible by 3, that might work. All right, and then finally here, the last percent that I gave you an example for estimation is 50%. I think most of you are comfortable with this, that if you want to find 50% of something, that you divide by 2. So 50% of 1,680 would be 840, and that is just shown here as well. I divide that by 2. Right, now you also should know how to calculate, right? So on the assessment, you'll have to calculate discount or sale price or tax or tip. So in general, when you're finding the discount or the sale price, we do it in two steps, right? You find the percent and then you subtract from the original. When you find the percent, you're changing your percent to a decimal and then multiply that decimal times the original amount. But another way to think about that, instead of doing the two steps in that order, you can switch it up. So maybe try subtracting the given percent, the discount, from 100, and then find that percent of the original. So I have an example here for you. So let's say an item costs $300 and is on sale for 40% off. So here's a solution kind of by estimation, but it's really also an exact value as well. So we could, instead of think about the 40% that we're taking off, we could think about the 60% that we're paying, right? Because if I'm taking 40% off the cost, I'm still paying for 60% of that price. So that's shown here. I'm subtracting the percent from 100. So I'm really paying 60% of 100. Now, if I had to do this by estimation, I would think maybe 10% of 300 by moving my decimal point one place to the left. 10% of 300 is 30, but since I want 60%, I can multiply that value by 6 to get 180. And that's how much I'm paying. So I already did the subtraction before. I don't need to do it again. So I'm paying $180 for the cost of that item. Now, the same example with a calculation. So you could still subtract mentally. If we were trying to find something 40% off, we're still paying for 60% of the cost. So I could still find 60%, but I'm writing 60% now as a decimal, and then multiply that decimal by the original price, and that gives me the sale price 180. So in general, for the entire unit, we're just using percentages, and we're using the fact that percentages are a ratio out of 100%. You should be able to calculate a percent, in particular for a discount or sale price of an item.